Hey everyone, welcome back to our third Made Alive
That's right.
Marriage podcast, where we will be talking about
Today we're talking about creating the space for having a safe marriage and learning how to talk about what the Lord is teaching us. Most of our marriages, we don't talk about what the Lord is teaching us. So today we're going to talk about that, how to create a safe space, which is very important in our marriage. So we hope this podcast encourages you, blesses you, honors you. If you love it, share with your friends, with your family. We'd love to bless marriages all over the country, all over the world. So God bless. Enjoy the conversation. So in light of expectations, safety and communication, differences in background, upbringing, dreams, desires, what is the key, I think, is constantly, God has to be at the center of it. The Lord has to be the center of it. But it can't just be this sort of, God's in the middle and it's sort of this vague God that's right there. It's this constant devotion to who is Jesus, who is the Holy Spirit, what is the Father teaching us. So I think for us, the key has been constantly allowing and giving space to the Lord, who rightfully has that space, to keep teaching us about ourselves, about marriage, about children, about family, and allowing the Lord to have his way. So in this season, what do you most sense when it comes to marriage? It can be children, but the Lord is teaching you.
Man, I think, gosh, that's a good question.
I know. That's my job, is to come up with good questions.
Yeah. And you know me, I'm a processor.
Yes. I need you to say something. Say something, or just break down and start crying.
How about you start?
What's the Lord teaching me?
Yeah.
I think the Lord is teaching me something you've known forever, that I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And
I have known that for a long time.
That's not actually very kind of you, but it's very true. I just think, I think I've always felt the weight in our family that I have to know everything, that I have to come out of the gate and know how to be a good husband and know how to be a good father and know how to, just operate and function in this world to keep our family healthy and walking in the direction the Lord's called us. So I think the Lord has graciously teach me that I don't know everything. And it's such a graceful, gentle, kind lesson that he's teaching me. I think he's using you to teach me that. Something else the Lord is teaching me is, we had someone over our house on Monday, and he asked this question. He's like, he said, how are you married to the same person for 16 years and you haven't got bored yet? We won't tell you who it was, because he might be watching. And I told him, well, it's because I'm not married to the same person. Hannah at 21 is not the same at Hannah at 26 and at 30.
Yeah.
You've grown in so many ways. Things that you struggled with, you didn't anymore. Things that that we thought were, no, this is it. We love doing this thing. It'll never change. 10 years later, it's not even a part of our life anymore.
Yeah.
But what is a part of our life is obviously the Lord, the church, worship, the central practices of our life, praying together as a family, our children, obviously. So I think what the Lord is also teaching me is to constantly keep my eyes open for the woman you're becoming, and not hold you to the woman you were at 21 and expecting that she'll always be this person that she was at 21 and thinking, no, she's got to stay in this box because I liked her at 21. She's got to stay that way at 31 and 41 and 51 and 61 and so on. So I think the Lord is teaching me just to see you in the way that he is constantly growing you and shaping you. Because I would say the most surprising thing for me about you, like, everyone knows you can sing. The first time I heard your voice, I didn't even remember this. I didn't see your face yet.
I don't remember this.
I'd met you twice in the same day. Didn't know it was you.
Yeah, that was fun.
It was fun, but I'd never heard you sing before. I knew you could sing, but I never heard you sing before.
Yeah, because people had told you.
People told me this girl can sing. And I was like, oh, okay, everyone sings, like, oh, she sings, she's got real powerful voice. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. So, but I remember, because they would always say that to me, like, oh, so-and-so can sing. Like, okay. So, because I was one of the worship leaders.
Yeah.
So
and it was like my dad telling you that.
Yeah, your dad was like, my daughter can really sing. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure she can cook too, and do laundry. I bet she's amazing,
Okay. Let's just
He was overselling it. He was overselling it.
Yes.
And your sisters would be like, you should meet my sister. She can sing. Except Kendra. Kendra hated me. Still does.
No,
I don't think
she
she'd watch the
doesn't.
podcast either. So
No, she won't.
she's definitely not watch the podcast. So where were we going with this? Oh,
I could sing.
I heard. So I'm walking into church, and I hear you. It was worship practice, and I heard you sing, and I literally said to myself, I don't know who that is, but she's gonna have my babies. I said that to my friend I was walking in with.
Who was your friend?
I was
Who were you
walking with Jesse. I was walking with Jesse.
Oh my gosh.
So I was walking with Jesse. I told Jesse that.
That's so
and Jesse's
funny.
like, dude, man, that's Hannah. You know Jesse, our drummer. So he
Yeah,
told me
yeah.
that. So anyways, I knew you could sing. You're great with people. You love hospitality. You love spending time with people. I think the most surprising thing for me has watching you grow in your prayer life, because I'm so keen on let's just fix it, solve it, and move on. And you are always the one slowing me down to what has the Lord called us to? Are we? I think the thing I most appreciate about you, maybe not most, but in a very real way, is you have the ability to call me out of my BS. Like you will not let me get away with, and not in a mean way, not in a mean way, not in a name calling way, in a very much, Narup, the Lord's called me to follow you, and you're not following the Lord. You're trying to find an escape. You're trying to justify this. You're trying to get out of this. You're trying to take the easy way out. And you always call me on that, and I would hate it. And you would always say, we need to pray and seek the Lord and have faith. And I would always say, like, that's not how it works, Hannah. That's not how it works. God does not reward stupidity. It's not how it works. And I would drive me.
Just have blind faith.
Yeah, and I'd say, like, that's not faith, Hannah. I don't know what that is. So you would always call me out on that. So the way that you pray for people, I think is incredible. Your ability to invite people over and just create space for prayer, not advice, not what to do, but prayer. And then in light of that, also watching you grow in your ability to speak wisdom over people is, I think I'm smart, but you're wise. And that's a big difference. That I'm a smart person, but you're a wise person.
Take time to process.
It is. It drives me nuts, but it is. So that's what the Lord is teaching me, to give you the space to become the woman God's called you to be.
It's good.
Yeah, and I'm not just saying that because it's Tuesday night. I don't know what that means.
It's Wednesday,
It's
first of all.
we missed Tuesday? We missed Naked Tuesday? Where was I?
Oh my gosh.
I was at a meeting.
Yeah. That's good. I think for me, just season of life, for a long time, it felt like I was just pushing against.
My body.
Dude.
I don't think I'm having a job anymore.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you ready to throw down?
Yeah. I think I just was pushing against all of the things that you're just supposed to do or supposed to be after you become a stay-at-home mom and wife.
That's good. Okay, so talk to the ladies about that. Talk to husbands and wives about that. How do you push against
Yeah, I think
what the expectation of what you create in your mind of what you're supposed to be?
Yeah, I honestly, and this may be more motherhood than marriage, but it affects both. I think I've been learning that for so long. Our generation of women and moms came into motherhood in this kind of cultural season of, women can be anything. So being a mom almost was like seen as a negative thing in a way.
Yeah.
And so because of that, there's so many women who are just kind of pushing against anything that makes you seem like a mom. Like we don't want it. So everything from, the kind of car you drive to how you cut your hair to what you're wearing. It was like, for me, I was pushing against anything that could make me, I'd see this group of moms they all get the same haircut and they're all driving the same car and they're all pushing their strollers around in, the park or whatever.
You hated that.
And I hated that.
You hated that.
And I just wanted to be anything but that.
Because you hate children.
Yeah, because I hate children. No, I just didn't want that to be my identity.
Yeah.
But I think I'm learning now.
You wanted gadgets and gizmos aplenty.
Gadgets and
Oozits and whatsits galore. Thingamabobs you had.
20.
But who cares?
No big deal.
You wanted
More. Okay.
I really like when we finish each other's
sandwiches. Okay. Anyway, so I think, but what I'm learning now is those early years of forming that mindset around what it was to stand against or go against what the normal, typical mother would do. Or
Yeah,
be.
because you were never against working moms or stay-at-home moms. Like,
Yeah, no, it wasn't that.
it was just more of you didn't want
more-
your identity to be like,
Right.
this is solely who I am.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you love being a mom.
I do love being a mom. It's hard, but I do love being a mom. I love my kids. But I do think that mindset did kind of stir up almost that there have been seasons where I've recognized that I have pushed against even my kids at times because of that same kind of mentality, you know, and had to work through a lot of that. But what I'm getting at is I'm learning now that the Lord is showing me that there's so much beauty in the just daily rhythms of things. And I'm not great at it because
Right. But
like,
you
being
actually
consistent.
speak into a lot of young women, young moms, young just married couples about this idea of creating healthy rhythms
Yes.
and inviting the Lord to teach you
yes.
something.
Yeah. So I've been learning. I feel like, okay, it's chaos no matter what because we have 4 boys. It's
Yeah.
just a loud,
Yeah.
chaotic home. It's
Boys'
just the
bathroom is like a
season.
truck stop.
Ugh.
It's disgusting.
It's kind of just like a battle of who can stand it the longest before one of us breaks and finally goes in to clean it because we're just so tired of cleaning it, but we're also so tired of it being so gross. But I just feel like even amongst the chaos, I've felt like we are getting into a better rhythm of it feeling generally more peaceful in the home because we're slowly starting to implement just better
Yes.
rhythm. So
Yeah.
not perfect at it, but like
No.
our morning routine, I'm not screaming at the kids as much as I used to. Getting them into the car
us?
to going to school because we're kind of
Mom doesn't hate you. She hates everyone.
Oh my gosh. But we've gotten, I feel like this school year.
That's the Irish side of you that comes out in the morning.
Ugh, yeah, it is. But I think this school year we've started off in just like, okay, this is just how we're going to do the
Yeah.
day. And it's not done perfectly every day, but we just have this general rhythm of we get the kids up, they get dressed. We make breakfast while they're getting dressed. They come sit and eat breakfast. And then we're kind of all ready to go. We've like not been late to school maybe
Yeah.
once this year. And that was because of
So we're learning all that
unfortunate
stuff.
traffic.
So we're learning. So the key is learning.
Yes.
So do you, in the conversations you have with couples, do you sense that one of the reasons that couples don't grow in their marriage and their faith is because they refuse to either talk about what the Lord is teaching them or they refuse to allow the Lord to actually teach them something, and they're always bailing themselves out, justifying how they live, escaping, making excuses? So what would you say to people when they are not allowing the Lord to teach them what he wants to teach them?
Well, I think part of that is they're probably just not used to even people asking them that.
But you literally, I have walked in after you've met with, different women, or you're just in relationship with them, and you would say that much of this is their issue, that they just do not allow God to teach them anything.
Right.
So what would you say to them? Or what would you say to couples who are in that season of, hey, you're orchestrating your life in such a way that you're actually excluding God from being the central person who is teaching you about the way to live and what he wants to teach you about life and marriage and faith and everything else?
I don't really know how to say that any differently other than, I mean, he has to be a part of the conversation. You have to always be looking for what he's teaching you.
But we actually ask each other. But this. We actually ask each other, what is the Lord teaching you?
Right, and that's why.
We ask our children that. What is God teaching you?
That's why I said earlier.
And most couples
just aren't used to
may
being
never ask
asked that question.
Yeah.
So then start asking that question.
So you can't have what I'm getting at is you cannot have a marriage where Jesus is at the center, where you have come to life in Jesus, you've been made alive in him, that you're now walking in communion with God and one another. If at no point you say, what is Jesus, who is at the center of our marriage, teaching you and teaching us? Because he has been constantly teaching us.
Right.
And usually there's lessons you don't want to learn, there's lessons I don't want to learn.
Yeah. Whoever wants to learn a lesson?
I like learning.
Not if it means you have to change something.
No, that's true. I don't. I like learning that what I'm doing is
You like
good.
learning facts.
I do like learning
general.
facts.
Just the way the world works.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does that bother you that I read so much? Does it bother you that does
No,
it bother you that
it
within a
doesn't
20-minute
bother me.
conversation, I quote to you 30 different authors?
No, that doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that you make me feel bad for not doing that.
Yes, I am proud of you that for the first time in your adult life, you finally learned how to read a book.
Oh my gosh. I'm in a book club.
You're in a book club.
But we
Fiction.
don't read nonfiction.
They don't read nonfiction. And it's not even classic fiction. It's not even,
No, it's just
Jane
good.
Eyre or
They're just good
Pride and
books.
Prejudice.
They're mostly good
or
books. We're learning to vet the books before we
Dr.
read the books.
Seuss.
We don't
Reading
read
is my
Dr.
escape.
Seuss. Yeah, it's interesting though because it's not an escape to another world. It's just an escape to I don't
No, I
know.
think it's another world. When I'm reading books by old dead people, I sense that sounds morbid. I don't sense dead people. I enter into when I'm reading books that are written in the 1800s and 1600s.
Okay.
I'm entering into that world.
Gotcha.
So when I'm reading books about, the way the restaurants are run or about NASA,
Sure. Okay,
I
I can see
enter
that.
into that space.
Okay.
And so I that's where I live in those spaces. And then it caused me to think and become better at certain. So I end up applying those. What I don't think you like is me telling you things that I'm learning that have nothing to do with you. And I'm trying to get you to change something based on what I'm learning
Yeah.
rather than just sharing that this is something I'm learning
Right.
and just for you to appreciate it. I don't think you like me trying to tell you something. Hey, I read this. Now you should change because I read this. I don't think you appreciate that.
No, I don't.
Yeah. Like the time I told you about if you have a cold, you should go to a steam room.
Yeah, but you didn't learn that.
I didn't. I assumed
That
it
was just a fact you made up in your head that was not true.
was not true, but I still stand by it.
No, that's the fastest way to spread
So
germs.
learning how to, so this is another thing that what the Lord's teaching you. I'm surprised at the number of couples who have no idea what their spouse's testimony is.
Ooh.
How did you
I
come
didn't
to the
even think
Lord?
about that.
How did you come to the Lord?
Yeah.
How did God rescue you from whatever life you had? And it's amazing to me the number of spouses that don't know their spouse's story. And then the unfolding nature of that story, right? How does that story, because as time goes on, we've talked about stories in our past that, not that new details emerge, but there's a new
Right.
sense of things that I didn't know I felt, maybe a past shame that I can now talk about something. And this is what the Lord has taught us, I think. We can now talk about our past without the shame that used to accompany it.
Right.
Because there used to be a time where we couldn't talk about
Right.
our past because it was so filled with shame.
Yeah.
And now we're able to talk about that. And I think it's the difference of...
Or without it affecting the other person too.
For sure. Yeah. So I think there's a difference between showing your spouse your wounds and showing them your scars.
Yes.
And you've got to be able to do both because they help you with your wounds. They can't obviously be the Holy Spirit. They can't be Jesus, but they are the number one encourager in your life. They can show. So spouses, we have to be showing each other our wounds. Here's where I'm wounded. But we also have to show each other our scars because our wounds are where God is healing us. And the scars are the joy of where God has healed us. And I think many couples have a difficult time doing this. And it's not actually that hard. It's really not that hard to talk about. Here's where I've been wounded. And I don't want to live in this wound. I don't want to live in this trauma. I don't want to live in this. I don't want to constantly be triggered by this. I want to show you a wound. Will you help me walk through this wound and invite other people into it? But also here's a scar from my life. And this is where that scar came from. And I no longer live in the definition of that scar. That scar doesn't define me. Jesus' scars didn't define him.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think a lot of couples have a hard time just
they do
talking
have a
about
hard
that.
time. And I think because there is still a lot of shame attached
Because a lot of
to it.
couples think they think it's a scar, but it's still a wound.
Yes. Yeah. And I have told people this because it can be easy. It feels easier to just remain in the unhealed
Sure.
wound because it feels easier to not have to talk about it.
Yeah.
But in the long run, you're not actually ever healed and whole, and that affects everyone. That affects your kids, your spouse, everything. So
And you never learn to trust your spouse because you're never really letting them into
right,
the wounds
right.
and the scars.
Yes, you're never fully trusting them, and they in turn can't fully trust you.
Yeah.
Really, because you're not being fully open with them, if that makes sense.
No, it
Yeah.
does. And I think
Yeah.
we've had to learn that over time, talking about
Yeah,
our past and the places that.
the closest that the moments that we become even closer are the moments that we're most vulnerable with things that we've from our past that maybe we haven't talked about with anyone, or maybe they're just things that we feel like might be hard to talk about for whatever reason.
Yeah.
We think it's going to hurt the other person, or we think it's just
Or
something
we
we're not
think-
proud of.
Or we think, because many of us have had this before, that if I tell my spouse this thing from my past, they will put it in their arsenal for another weapon they
Use
can
it against
use
me.
in our next argument, or when something happens, like, oh, it's because you're always like this, and they pull, and so that,
Yeah.
and that's again doing the hard work of day after day, season after season, year after year. Your home and marriage should be, must be, the safest space
Yeah.
in your life.
Yeah.
And
I mean, all of those things. I mean, I would say the conversations that we've had that have been the most vulnerable are conversations that were always covered in prayer. I mean, I remember
Yeah.
things, just praying over you for things that I knew were going on that you weren't ready to talk about. And then those moments being just filled, when the conversations did finally happen, filled with so much grace. And
yeah, that's really good. Praying for your spouse to be able to have the conversation, and that prepares your heart. So it's cultivating the soil of your own heart to prepare to have those conversations. So
Yeah.
those are really good. I think for us, as we continue to think about marriage, want to invest in marriage, we constantly want to create and talk about marriage as the central place that it's safe in your life. Not to stay who you want to stay as, but for you to become who God has called you to be, and to allow the Lord and the Holy Spirit to invade through prayer, in the Word, in community, in the church, in worship, in generosity, in practicing the way of Jesus, living the made alive life, that God would use this central relationship to reflect his love to you, and then how that reflects God's love to the world. But it's safe. And I think if I could describe Jesus in one word, it would be safe. Not in the sense that he'll let you do whatever you want, but in the sense that you can come to him however you are, and he will receive you and love you and change you gently and powerfully, and he will transform you at his pace, not at whatever pace we think we need to change. So great conversation.
Yeah.
3 in.
Nailed it.
We'll do this again in 16 years.
Perfect.
Nailed it. Love you guys.